Hello and welcome to the fourth episode of my 2023 Rugby World Cup preview series. We start Ireland's pool, Pool B today, and start the group by looking at our near neighbour Scotland. After a third place finish in this season's Six Nations, can the Scots return to the quarters, or will the mighty pool stage challenge prove too steep? Join me tonight to look at the Scots, our two further debutants to this podcast. Firstly, I'm joined by Glasgow fan and writer David Arnott, so welcome on, David.
Thank you very much for having me.
No problem at all. Good to have you on. And joining him is an Edinburgh fan and one part of the Scottish Rugby podcast crew, Craig Manson. So thanks for joining us, Craig.
Thank you very much for having me. It's great to be on.
And it's great to have both of you on, lads, as we're counting down the days now, less than 5 weeks out from the tournament. So I'll go to you first, Craig. Are you excited for the upcoming World Cup?
Yeah, very definitely. It's been, I'm sure we'll cover this further down the line, but, I'm looking forward to seeing Scotland do well and do better than they did in 2019, and it'll be an interesting time.
Good. Hopefully they don't do better than they did against Ireland in 2019. I'll just put it that way. And David, yourself, are you excited?
Yeah, let's go excited. No, I don't know how you feel. I'm not sure. I'm not sure how it's going to go, to be quite honest with you. Let's go with excited and work it from there.
Yeah, that's so bad. So most people, to be fair, have come on and have been. And maybe if you lost to France at the weekend, maybe you wouldn't be as excited. But those are the swings and roundabouts of sport. And speaking of, there's probably one obvious starting point, and that is the immediate retirement of Scotland legend Stuart Hogg. David, I'm going to come to you first for this one because you are a Glasgow fan and have a Glasgow top on, and I still let you onto the podcast as a Munster man with the Glasgow gear. Would you just take us through your thoughts about Stuart Hogg and even any kind of thank yous or whatever, because he is an icon of Scottish rugby?
Oh, he's been a fantastic servant over the years, right from the debut in Cardiff all the way up to his very last game. Yeah, it's just a shame that he's had to give up. I thought this would be a last swan song. Thought World Cup wise, even though he's announced he's retiring international, I always thought this was probably his last World Cup anyway. But just a real shame that he's not going to be there. Obviously, you want the best players to go, but if his body's not holding up and he's not going to be able to offer, the pace that he does or the abilities that he's got, then yeah, by all means, best to retire. He's just been a great guy over the years. I've met him, God knows how many times at Glasgow and stuff. He's always been very friendly, lovely guy. It's just a shame he's not going to make it. But as I say, if your body's not going to hold up, no point in going.
Sure. Do you want to add anything, Craig?
Not really. I think David said it all. He was the one of the original rock stars. He really came into Scotland when we were needing a rock star, and okay, he's had these detractors over the last couple of years, which I think have been a mixed. It's been a mixed bag of praise and no praise and criticism. But I think over the years, if you look back, he's a Scotland try record holder at this moment in time. He was, as I say, one of the first rock stars, so he's got to be looked upon as one of the biggest players Scotland have ever had, and we have to be thankful for that.
Absolutely. And I suppose there is the rugby side of things as well, which we should get into. And I'll come to you first, Craig, on this one. And that's, Blair Kinghorn looks like the obvious replacement at 15, providing Townsend doesn't move him back to 10 again. To be honest, as a neutral, I think they're a better team at the moment with Kinghorn at 15. So what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, Kinghorn is obviously he played 10 when he was younger in age grade and also free school side, etc. But at 15, he was Hoggy's kind of, he was his Ollie Smith to Hoggy, if you know what I mean. He was the backup for Hoggy, and he got a fair bit of criticism as a 15, and then he came on at 10 with Edinburgh, and then moved to 10 for a few games for Scotland, and got a fair bit of criticism for that as well. But actually, if you see him at 15, he's because of that time he spent at 10. I feel he's got every chance of being just as good, if not better, than Hoggy over the next wee while. I think he's finally emerging now as his natural place is 15. I think, especially for international rugby, he's played incredibly well for us at 10, for Edinburgh at 10. But we're really excited to see him. Every time he has come on to the park, usually as a super sub, he's come on and made a difference to a Scotland game. So it's a really exciting thing to see. We'll wait and see how he and Ollie Smith shape up, because I think they're both going to the Rugby World Cup. So we'll wait and see. But he is the good thing about it is he's a natural bench player, because he's able to come in and go into the wing. He's able to go into 15. He's able to go into 10 if need be. So he's. It's one of those things, whether we see Ollie Smith start and Blair King on the bench. But the last couple of games we've kind of thought, well, I don't think he's going to be on the bench. I think he's going to be starting at 15. So we'll wait and see.
It's been his kind of year of ascendancy in some ways. He broke onto the scene a few years back on the wing, but definitely feels like he's gone up another level this year. And would probably. We could go into the squad now, but we might just come back to it and kind of focus on the bigger picture at the moment, because yes, Hogg may be departing, but Gregor Townsend is to remain on as head coach off the back of 3 straight Calcutta Cup wins and a 3rd place finish this year, as I mentioned at the top of the show. But that's obviously in spite of talks of his departure, which many of us would have heard. And David, are you happy with this renewal? And obviously, that's probably not the best way of putting that question, but just in general with Townsend and the fact that he's going to stay on for another 2 to 3 years.
Yeah, I think I was slightly surprised, I must admit, that they offered him a new contract prior to the World Cup, because you now have to back him. Regardless of how they do, if they win the World Cup or they don't go out of the pool stage, you've got to go with what happens, because he's signed up. So I was slightly surprised, I must admit. I think we've progressed. We've looked good. He's brought through youngsters. We've played better. We've never known a period of winning so many Calcutta Cups and being competitive for a long time. But yeah, I must admit I was slightly surprised at them extending just before the World Cup. Whether they didn't get the options that they wanted, or whether he was always their original choice, I guess we'll never know. But I'm happy to back him. I think he's done better than certainly a lot of coaches we've had over the last few years. When you look at the Williams and Haddons and Robinsons and whatnot. So yeah, more than happy to go with him.
And Craig, what's your thoughts on Townsend's extension?
It was a mixture. It was a 50-50 decision. I heard, obviously there was rumours that he'd applied for the France attack job, and then there was rumours of him coming and being Leicester's new head coach. And I think for me, I would prefer him in role, especially when we're that close to a World Cup. I'm slightly surprised by the length of his contract. It's an odd time for his contract to come up for renewal. I think it's about a year out, or a year and a half out from the next World Cup. But also you have to look at how he has performed as a coach. Okay, he's had some fairly major hiccups within the squad, and I'm being polite calling it hiccups. He's had some major issues, squad issues, etc. But he has come through it, And if you look at, for example, we take the big superstar issues, Finn Russell was playing the best rugby of his Scotland career at this moment in time, and he's all of a sudden he's captain as well. So he's obviously gained Townsend's trust, and Townsend has gained his trust back again. So I think he's doing it. I think he's doing an all right job. I'm happy with what he's doing. What I would say, however, is that currently he's got some phenomenal coaches with him. He's got obviously John DL organising the defence. He's got Pete Horne involved, and Pete Horne is an absolute superstar of a coach. I think he's going to be our next Scotland coach, head coach. Although David will not be too happy because it will take him away from Glasgow. And then also the attack at this moment in time is reeking of Brad Moore. And if there's anyone that's a successor for Gregor Townsend, I think Brad Moore's somewhere around there, you know.
Yeah, so that's fair. And isn't Townsend probably gets judged from externally on Six Nations finishes, but within Scotland, it's more about kind of performances to more of a degree, you know. That's just from what we see in Ireland anyway. It comes across that way, and like they come in, they've had 3 fourth place finishes in the Six Nations, followed by 3rd this year. So Craig, I'll throw it back to you again. This 4-year cycle as a whole, following a really poor World Cup in Japan, what's your thoughts on it been in general?
I think it's been a mixture of a couple of things. One of the major things has been man management. I think he's been learning on the job. I think he got to a point where he thought he was king of the country on that side of things, and unfortunately Finn Russell and Stuart Hogg had slightly different things to say, and then they went off and had, especially 2 Six Nations ago, or last Six Nations, they had a little bit of an issue with discipline within the squad. But I think he's learned from that. I think we're in the strongest position now than we've ever been. And again, I think it's because he's managed to bring a good group of coaches around him, and he's got some of the best players we can ever field there in his hands. So he's, you know, as long as he doesn't bring out the Toonie Tombola and start bringing in anyone else that we don't expect, I think he's got a fairly strong squad. So I think over the last 4 years, I think he's learned from his mistakes and he's moved further forward. And that's where I'm quite glad that he's been given the extension, because they're going to allow him to actually see it through. And okay, if we have a very, very poor Rugby World Cup, then there'll be questions asked, and I don't think you might find he might not be in position for very long after that. But I think he'll do all right. And we have to look at different things, you know, because especially this year we've been very strong. Okay, we went missing a little bit against Ireland, but Ireland were particularly strong in this Six Nations. But for example, France were probably a line-out throw away from almost beating them by 14 men. So I think, you know, if things go slightly differently, we win 4 out of 5, you know. So it's you know, he's done quite a good job, you know, in my opinion.
That's fair. I have a point to bring up on that in a minute, but might just go fully into this year with yourself first, David. Just this year, Six Nations, as Craig mentioned, could have been very, very good. It ended up being a 3rd place finish, still won the rest in a long, long time. So do you think that was kind of a statement of intent in a World Cup year to come 3rd, or do you feel like there could be any regrets?
I think that's the problem. As Craig hinted, obviously the last World Cup was terrible, let's be honest. And we've improved massively since then, but I think we're probably disappointed that we've missed a trick here and there by not beating a couple of other teams and finishing stronger. You know, we could have had another couple of 3rd place finishes. We could have maybe even had a 2nd. You know, that breeds you know, success within the group. Obviously, we're coming up against a very, very good French side a very, very good Irish side, and we have got the best players that we've had for a long time. But yeah, I think we're in a good place going. I think we could have been better, but I think it's one of the best, probably the best position we've been in for a long time going into a World Cup.
That's certainly a positive, and I'm not going to try and rain your parade, but I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't play devil's advocate here. As like you know the question that's coming, you've seen the notes, but like yes, they came third, but you could also argue they kind of didn't show up for large periods against Ireland and against France. And okay, you could say the same about the weekend gone by in Murrayfield, but they won that game, so that's kind of a misnomer. But some people say there's a possible mental fragility around Scotland. Some people say it's leadership, it's different things. So like heading into a tournament where they play Ireland and France, against whom they've won one of their last 10 against both of them. Like, is there question marks hanging over their head? And I'll come to you first, Craig. You're on mute there, Craig. Sorry.
My apologies. I was opening a drink there, and I thought you didn't want to hear me opening a drink. So my apologies.
No worries.
Yeah, it's an odd one because yes, we have gone missing a couple of times, and we have got. We just need to look at what 2026 nations or 2021. I think we decided we're going to win the whole thing, and we went missing against Wales. And there is this this feeling building of mental fragility within the team. But I actually don't think it's a mental fragility. I think it's processes that are put in place, and you've got someone at 10 who is very. He's not a process person. He likes to work. He has his moves and he knows how to play. But I don't think he's one of those people that you put into a box and say, "This is what you have to do." And when, for example, you look at him, you look at how Townsend with Gatland coached the Lions. It was very process led, and it didn't do him any favors. But actually, he's very good at bringing attack-minded players together. John DL's put in a very, very solid defence for ourselves. And when you start playing certain processes, you can see where things are going missing. And then all of a sudden, when it's like, right, guys, it's time, you need to get yourself sorted out and go and play. That's where the Scotland comes out. And I think, for example, this last weekend, it was an example of it straight away. We were kicking and we were returning the ball to them. They were returning the ball to us, and we got kind of involved in this sort of putting the ball to the forwards and crashing the ball up. And unfortunately, the support wasn't there, so the process wasn't working. And then all of a sudden, it was like, right, at half time, the shackles are off. On you go and play, and we looked absolutely a different team. They were fantastic in the second half. So I think I would probably argue with the word fragility. I would probably say that Townsend misses the mark at certain points, and he doesn't gel with the team at certain points, and he's tried to get them to do something that they don't want to do, and that's where the problem is now. And again, it goes back to the old words of man management, and I think that's where we have our issues. So I'm not 100% down the line of fragility. I think it's more the fact of because I'm going on too long, but I find it very difficult to look at these professional rugby players that are doing a very, very good job in both for their club and their country, and think that they're fragile. I don't honestly think they're fragile. I think there's something there that just goes wrong at times,
That's fair. Well, I think it's an okay trade-off on an Irish pod to stand up for the players and throw Townsend under the bus, because a lot of listeners would have wanted one of them to be thrown under the bus, so they'll take Townsend at least. But David,
don't
obviously,
worry. Later on, I'll be throwing Ali Price, which is under the bus, and that'll be a Munster fans' favourite. So don't worry about that.
I know there's more, but we won't go there. We'll be here all night otherwise.
There are no players left in the squad. They'll all be under buses.
That's it too. What's your thoughts on the same question? Like Craig said that it's not fragility, it's more of a process thing. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it is. I think sometimes when we try and play structured, it just doesn't seem to come off. And I don't know, maybe. Yeah, I tend to agree. I don't think it's a fragility thing. I think we just don't sometimes play. There is a certain Scotland way of playing. Let's be honest. I'm sure Craig will agree as well. It's fast, it's loose, and sometimes when we try and play structured, we try too hard. You know, you can see things aren't coming off, and then, as I said, second half against France, you tell the boys to go out and play, and look what they do. So I don't know. I think sometimes the structure doesn't necessarily fit. And that we don't quite grasp the game plan of who we're playing against. I'm not saying you can go out every time and you can play, just go and do what you want to do, boys. I'm sure it'll all come together. That's not going to happen every time, but structures, I don't know, structures just don't seem to quite suit us.
Yep, Craig, you want to jump in?
Can I just back that up with David and just say, where I find it difficult is when Townsend sends the team out to play a South African way against the South Africans. We're never going to do that.
Never going
to do that. It's never going to happen. Okay, we've got a couple of Scotland players who originate from South Africa, but that we don't have a team of Schumans. We don't have a team of Duhans. So when we go in and try and fight them with pure physicality, we're going to end up on the wrong side of that. Where we're going to beat South Africa is being Scotland. Mm-hmm. And that's where I get, like, for example, when we went to South Africa with the Lions, that's where Townsend, I felt, went off the charts a little bit with Gatland, because they tried to play the Lions as South Africa or against South Africa, and it didn't do it very well. Whereas when Finn came on and tapped Alwyn Jones in the chest and said, "All right, big man, let's go," we got a bit of Scottish flair in there, and actually it made a huge difference. So I think, just to back to what David's saying, I think
the only time that I can remember lately where we've tried to match up to a team and it's almost worked was when we almost beat the All Blacks a few years ago, and we tried to play them at their own game, and it was a whisker from coming off. But yeah, you're right. If we try and go and out South Africa, it ain't gonna happen.
It's interesting to hear that, actually, because I would be of the opinion that if Scotland do play their own game, which obviously is a concern in your eyes that they mightn't against South Africa, that they could beat them in that opening game, because I feel like Scotland will have all eyes on it. So maybe that is something that's worth considering, that if they don't do that, they're just going to get beaten and it's just going to feel like the same old story. And like, we obviously don't know what the World Cup is going to unfold, but we're here to try and see. And if they do play a South African game against them, I don't see it happening either. I don't see it working, to be honest. But you mentioned players, and we'll get into the squad now. I have to plug it. Munster's own Ben Healy is in there, and he could be one to benefit from Hogg's retirement, for instance, because of Kinghorn possibly being now a full back once again. And David, I'll come to you first. Do you want to just take us through the current extended squad? I know it's been whittled down to 37 or 8 at the moment. And how do you see it going by the time it gets to 33?
I think it's probably about as strong a squad as we could possibly have hoped for at this point in time. We've suffered, God, I hope I don't jinx it now, but we've suffered very few injuries. I think one area that's really going to hinge now is we're going to have to wait and see what happens with Xander, and how long that ban's going to be. Second time in, what was it, second time in 2 years, Craig? Red card?
Yeah.
That, I mean, he's facing a ban. It's just a matter of how long it is, and I'll be surprised if he's facing South Africa. And I'm not sure if he'll be facing a couple of other teams, to be honest, as well. But yeah, I think we've got good squad depth. I think from a personal point of view, I'm gutted to see Stafford McDowell cut out the team, but then I have to look at the quality of the centres that are still left and say, right, okay, fair enough. I think we've still got, what was we got, 4 9s, I think 4 scrum halves still in there. I imagine Jamie Dobie will probably be the one to go, depending on the injury that Ben White picked up. But I think they were quite positive about that, so I imagine it will be Dobie will be the one that goes. I think looking on the face of it, we've got as strong a squad as we can get. The guys who are missing out are going to be very, very unlucky. But that's the nature of a World Cup year. I am surprised that Adam Hastings missing out altogether, I must admit. We all had him as a stick-on for as Finn's replacement a few years ago. And now he's not even going to the tournament.
Fair. I won't make a monster jibe there. I'll just throw it over to you, Gregor, with the squad.
Yeah, it's an odd one, because I was looking at it today, because obviously with the latest squad list was sent out, and obviously Xander, it's questionable. I agree with David. People are saying, he's going to miss the South Africa game. I think he's going to miss more than that, because unfortunately it's the same offence, and it's the same offence within 2 years. Don't get me wrong, we can say, and it's been said before, Bougarit made a fair job of letting the referee know, and it was quite a performance from him. But on the other side of things, it was shoulder and head to head. So, and Xander came from fairly far out. So, it was a red card, and that's the unfortunate thing about it. But he is one of those.
It's one of those, give a referee a decision to make, isn't it?
Yeah. And your heart's saying that Bougarit made enough of a fuss about it. But on the other side of things, we're having, red cards, head contact is the big thing at this moment in time, and we have to just play the game the way the game's being played. But so it'll be interesting to see who goes. Again, Hastings, excuse me, Hastings, I'm disappointed for, because I think Hastings has got a lot to give, but he's too close to Finn Russell, especially from the performance that Healy has given. And that's where the whole Blair Kinghorn thing is coming as well. Blair Kinghorn, I felt, gave something completely different to Finn Russell, so that if Finn Russell wasn't working, you could bring Blair Kinghorn on, and you're going to get a tall, athletic runner who's going to go on the inside of players' soft shoulders and offload, etc. He's not got the tricks that Finn has. He's not got the skills that Finn has to his extreme. But on the other side of things, he's reliable. He's a good player. What we have got now in Healy is we've got all that I've described Blair Kinghorn, but we've got a boot that is absolutely fantastic. His place kicking is just immense. It almost to the point of nonchalant. So I think no wonder I think he's going, and he's going to be on the bench to replace Finn Russell if need be. I think our back rows there's going to be a couple of back rowers miss the plane or the Eurostar, and I think that'll be disappointing, because they're incredibly good back rowers. But I think we've just got so many back rowers, including Dempsey, who I'm well known for not being hugely amorous about, especially when he's in a Glasgow jersey. But he's undoubtedly a talent, and he does a good job. So we've got Richie's there. My big question is whether I think there's a good chance of Dobie going and Ali Price not going. And the main reason for that is that Townsend is very well known. He took George Horn to the 2019 World Cup almost as an apprentice.
Yeah.
And I think Dobie could go. I've never seen such a nice passer, although the first pass he made when he came on against who did he play? It wasn't Wales. It wasn't France. It was the game before. Italy. The first pass he made was a howler, but he is a beautiful passer of the ball. So, and I think there's a chance that Ali Price might not go, and that's a shame for Ali Price. But for me, as a Howe Fife man and a George Horn fan, who's been underused over the last few years with Glasgow, I think it's a good thing for George Horn. So he'll be real interesting. It all depends on Ben White, and as you say, as David said, Ben White's Gregor Townsend was quoted either today or yesterday saying that he was his injury. He's had an ankle injury prior to the game, and he played on it. So they're not that upset about it. I think he's going to be okay. So we'll wait and see.
It should be interesting anyway that there is a big name who could well miss out. Adam Hastings, of course, already in that bracket though as well. But we'll just touch on the warm-up games, of which we've talked about quite a bit already, but just in general of kind of how the games unfolded, what do you think we learned from them? Scotland 2 from 2, they beat Italy at home, to beat France at home. Now, maybe don't all jump on me to take the Italy game because that was such an unbelievable cracker as well. But the French game in particular is probably the one you probably want to talk about as well. So, Craig, do you want to go first and just look at those two games as a whole, and what impression did you get off Scotland?
Yeah, I think Italy was a trial. It was an old fashioned. Let's see what you can do. And I think the big winner out of Italy was Ben Healy. And I think Ben Healy did an incredibly good job. Don't get me wrong; it looked like they were shoveling some horrendous. Their attack was quite slow, and the passes weren't that zippy, as if you can imagine that. But it was he did a very good job. France again, I think France was very much. I don't know about. I don't mean to speak for David, but I think both of us would be sitting there watching that and going, somebody needs to take them inside the change rooms at halftime and knock their heads together, and see what happens, because they were just the forwards weren't hitting the rucks quick enough. Give France the glimmer of a turnover and they'll have it. They're too quality for that. Everyone said it was a second string French side that came over. It may be a second string French side, but it was a really, really good second string. They play in one of the best leagues in the world, and they did a very, very good job. So I think we had to be on our A game. We came back and showed that we have the ability, and I certainly wasn't. I think there was just a few rusty people, or people that were needing a bit of a shake, and just realised what international rugby again was, and I think they did a very good job eventually. So, but unfortunately, as everyone has said, and Tom English himself was chatting on another podcast saying, we do that against South Africa, we do that against Ireland, we ain't coming back for it, So, no, I'm fairly positive about it all.
David, yourself?
Yeah, I mean, Italy was a bit of a grind. Showed well in patches, but a bit of a grind. First 40 minutes against France, shambles. Yeah, second string that most people would be delighted to have as their first string. To be quite honest, I think some of those players are going to go on to be, really quality players. Maybe this World Cup's too early for them, but certainly by the next one. But to try and find a positive, yeah, like if we do that for the first 40 minutes against Ireland, against France, against South Africa, yeah, we're not coming back. The only positive you can take is that we did come back, and we came back when we had 14 men. And that shows a certain resolve and a certain belief that the squad obviously has. It would have been potentially easier for the heads to go down and for us to struggle for the next 40 minutes and end up, we maybe get a couple of tries and we bring the score slightly more respectable. But, they stuck at it. They did well. They've beaten, a team above them. So that's got to be a positive. But yeah, we do. If we do that in the World Cup, we're in trouble. We're going to be in trouble against one of the big teams, and South Africa won't give you 20 points of a head start and then fold, no matter how well we play. So yeah, we have to ensure that we play as full and 80 as we can. But at least we have that in the locker that maybe we can make a comeback if we start to get a few points on the board here and there.
Fair, and we'll get into those big games. South Africa and Ireland jump off the page. The Tonga game, probably one to keep an eye on at the very least, and then Romania complete the pool. And I'll come back to you first, David. Like on the pool as a whole, a lot of people building it as a pool of deaths. It is tough. Like, how do you see it going for Scotland? They start with South Africa, of course. They finish with Ireland. You've got 3 weeks in between, if there's any injuries from the South African game, for instance. But just how do you see that group going? And like, I touch on predictions after this. So just in general.
Well, I think it would have been. I don't want to be disrespectful and say smaller nations, but it would have been nice to maybe have Romania first up, I must admit. Gets the win, gets a bit of confidence going. But we're not. We're going to have to face the world champions. And it's going to be exceptionally difficult. But we've seen them in the rugby champions and they haven't been fantastic. They've played very well, but they haven't been fantastic. It's all to play for in that game. I think that game is that's going to set the marker. If we lose that badly, then we absolutely have to beat you guys without a shadow of a doubt. If we stumble through it, if we pick up injuries, yeah, it could be a long World Cup, because I think, with all due respect to them, I think we should beat Romania and beat them reasonably comfortable. Tonga is one of these prospects that you don't know what you're going to get. You're going to get battered. That's all you do know. It's going to be 80 minutes of big hits, big tackles. And they can surprise teams. I mean, we've seen them beat France at the World Cup before. They have a big game in them. I really hope it's against Ireland, but they have a big game in them. Could we be the ones that suffer? And then the Irish game is I guess we're going to have to wait and see on that one. We'll have to wait and see what rests on it. Is it a case of winner tops the pool and goes through, or is it a case of we're already gone by then, or Ireland gone by then, or who knows? We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, and just on the point you mentioned there about playing South Africa first, and it means it could get off to a bad start. Scotland were well beaten by Ireland in the first game of 2019. So is that kind of where that? I'm not asking where your own fears come from, but is that kind of what you're basing that off? Do you think, or?
Well, yeah, I mean, you have to play the top seeds at some point, but I think sometimes you maybe want that game under your belt to make a good start. Obviously, we did have the Irish game first last time. We didn't do well, and you're chasing your tail after that. And I think, was it the previous World Cup the one down in England, we had a couple of decent starts before we ended up having to play the two biggest games, which was South Africa and Samoa, I think it was. So we had a bit under our belt. We had a bit of a cushion. It's tough to get yourself up to tournament level straight away.
Oh, it's understandable. And then Craig, like, you can touch on any points David made as well, but do you think Scotland will get out of this pool?
It's the hope that kills you. It's a weird one. I think I questioned who we were playing in the warm-up games. I thought, 2 games against France, why are we putting our players through this? Because, all I could see was injuries.
I believe that was a deal, though, as part of the voting back in 2017. Or so I heard.
Well, we'll not get into that conversation because we know
No.
which way you're going to go on that one. But I think I was kind of like, oh, why are we doing that? But actually, playing France, A, at home, and then B, because next week, we're going to be playing the first string team in France. There's absolutely no doubt about it, because they're going to throw everything at it. I think it's going to give us a fairly big test, and I think that's what we need. And then they'll play a few of the more fringe players that are maybe borderline against Georgia. Is it Georgia? Yeah, it's Georgia. We'll see what happens. I'm not afraid of South Africa, and I'm not afraid of Ireland. I'm more afraid of Samoa. No, it's Tonga, is it? No,
Tonga, yeah.
Tonga, yeah. Because we're at a stage where they've reclaimed a couple of their players through the new rules, some superstar players, and they will be targeting Scotland out of that pool for an upset. So we have to be very, very careful. The first 20 minutes of the Samoa game, I should say, when we played them last year, was quite, they gave us a good game. So we have to just be careful, because we could, in my mind, there's a chance that we could beat South Africa and then trip over Tonga. So it just that's my concern. I don't, and this is, and I don't mean this in any disrespect at all, but I don't fear Ireland as our last game, because we'll have built and we'll have worked. And if we do well enough, then this is a pressure game. And Ireland have all the pressure then, because Ireland are the best team in the world, and they have a lot. I'm not meaning this in any disrespect, but they have the island nation behind them. They're very, very, very confident, and you'll have a player back after his referee course, and he'll be back. So, there's an opportunity. They'll be riding high and thinking that their confidence will be very, very high. And I would far rather take on an Ireland when their confidence is very, very high and everyone's talking about how great they are, etc. Because that's when you take a fall. So it's an interesting one, and I really, obviously, all of us have decided that we're not getting out of the pool. We've all of Scotland have decided that we're not getting out of the pool, and that's where Scotland are the most dangerous.
It's funny you make the Ireland point, because just the other day I was asked about, Scotland, South Africa, teams targeting games, whatever, all that kind of stuff. And I said, I don't fear Scotland. So it's funny, we're both on the same coin, but coming at it from different sides. And I suppose I understand your viewpoint about Ireland. There will be pressure, no doubt about it, in the last game. But I just feel like, there's going to be pressure on Scotland regardless. I don't see Scotland losing to Tonga or Romania. I think they might struggle in one of them, as you alluded to, but I don't see them losing. So I feel like the pressure goes back onto them, and then Scotland under pressure. Seen it in Murrayfield this year against Ireland. Yeah, that's just me. That's just me talking.
Don't get me wrong. Ireland are looking a fantastic outfit. There's absolutely, when I think it was last, what was it? It was the first game of the Six Nations, and they looked slick. They looked all powerful, and they looked like someone that you have no chance of handling. But we talk about the World Cup, etc. have they peaked too soon? And that's a good question to ask, you know. And you know, or let me come on, give me a little bit of something to grasp onto, and a little bit of hope, you know.
But see, it's easy for him. You can tell he's not Scottish when he's saying that he doesn't see a problem against Romania or Tonga.
I know.
No, I said I see problems. I just said you won't lose. There's a difference.
That's it then. So basically, we're going to cuff South Africa now and cuff Ireland in the last game. And the fact that we've lost to Tonga and Romania on the way is going to kill us.
It'll just be typical of us doing incredibly well and then losing to Romania, you know.
Oh, jeez. There will be, that will be something else, to be honest. I actually wouldn't. I would root for it, but I wouldn't root for it at the same time, if you know what I mean. But listen,
the thing is, a funny thing about it is that, you know, we're all sitting here talking about different things, and we're all talking about how England have got such a really, really easy pool of it. And I'm thinking, after the Wales game, I'm thinking, well, have they got an easy pool of it?
That's a fair point.
France, the RGs to top that group.
Yeah, but then they haven't really done that in the Rugby Championship either. You know, so I suppose that's the intriguing thing. And
but they have the king of Murrayfield. They have Boffelli, who is just, you know, wonderful.
I could make so many comments about this, but listen, even when Munster were at their lowest, they still got a bonus point from Edinburgh, so I'll just leave it at that. In Edinburgh as well. It's been good fun, but we definitely need to get into predictions and all that as well. So just firstly, really quickly, David, do you think they're getting out of the pool?
Oh, go for it. Why not?
The hope that kills you is what Craig said earlier. So Craig, do you think they're getting out of the pool? Or not? Go on, David.
No, that was just going to say, it is, and that is the most Scottish phrase possible. We build ourselves up. Doesn't matter the sport, doesn't matter the tournament, we always do it, and then crushing defeat. But hey ho, no, I think we'll struggle. If I'm totally honest with you, I think we'll struggle.
That's fair. Craig, yourself?
Well, considering the fact that I tipped Edinburgh for winning the URC last year, I'm maybe not the right person to ask. Honestly, I think we'll pull off a surprise result. We'll either beat South Africa or we'll beat Ireland, one of the two. But that if Ireland are on their good day, they're going to wipe the floor with everybody. But I think the natural grind of South Africa will play it out and they'll go through from the group. I honestly would love to see Scotland do some damage and actually finally show everyone that we are to be taken seriously. Because we are getting a bit fed up. I don't know what David thinks, but I'm still getting a bit fed up of the whole thing of Scotland being a bit, good one day and rubbish the next.
Yeah.
And everyone thinks that. So I would like to see the investment in this squad. We have a phenomenal roster of players. We really do. It's like Edinburgh. Glasgow are very similar, but Glasgow do a very good job with players. That's a lot of players who sit under the radar. We've got a stellar squad in Edinburgh, and we performed incredibly badly last season. So, I just hope that we've got a phenomenal squad as a Scotland team. I hope we actually do some damage this year rather than fizzle out.
No, that's a fair point. It is one of the more talented squads, and if you take someone like me in my lifetime in particular, can they do it? I don't know. I actually feel like, and it just came to my attention there when you're on about South Africa, like Scotland's craziness in some ways could actually help them in a game like that. Like South Africa, they're good and all, but place kicking has been poor in the last few years when Pollard hasn't been on the pitch. And like, if there's one team who'll outscore you 3 tries to 1, it's Scotland. Whether they win or lose, they could do that. So that's certainly something that could happen as well. I'd be rooting for you.
The problem we've got is we went down the old French route of you never quite know what's turning up.
Yeah, you are the new France. That's absolutely true. without the money, of course, but definitely the new France. But
I was about to say we don't Sorry, David, on you go.
No, you go.
I was going to say we're not stupid. Like, we don't give the stupid red cards away like France do. And then I went, hang on a minute.
We don't give away as many.
Just all from the same player. It's fine.
Hey, listen, whoa! Don't start, because I've seen the forums and I've seen the chats, etc. And the pile on Zander Fagerson is unbelievable from Scottish fans, and it's like they need to settle down because
hung, drawn, and quartered.
Oh, absolutely. And this, he was. I wouldn't say he was unlucky. I think it was a bad decision on his part. But to be looking at our best, our best tight head prop and saying that he should never play for Scotland again because he's a liability is a bit nuts. So I think although VP Nell is, I just have to think about him when I'm in a depression. So anyway, that's a different story.
He'll still be around by the next World Cup.
I will, yeah.
And speaking of, Ireland played Italy and beat them at the weekend, as you know, and like literally our two wingers combined for like 15 tackles, missed 2. They both let you tries, and people are saying they shouldn't go to the World Cup because of it. So I understand the nonsensical side of things, and especially I think the fact that rugby is one major event or one major game after the other brings it out as well. Like there's no like, oh, we're playing Andorra, so people don't notice. No, it's just it's constant. But to wrap it up, lads, I still don't even know if you think they're going to get out of the group pool. To be honest, I think you're just going to take it one game at a time. But
I'm going for getting us out the pool.
Okay, fair. So I'll start with yourself. So what's a reasonable expectation for Scotland then? Is it quarterfinal? Is it semi-final possibly? Can I go that far? Or is it just a good beat one of South Africa and Ireland and go from there?
Well, being a team that everyone thinks that we only raise our game for one match, a Six Nations, and that's the England game. I would like to see us raise our game for one big match, and seeing as I'm on, I don't know what David thinks, but seeing as I'm on an Irish pod, I would like to see us raise our game and give our friends from across the water a wee bloody nose. However, I think we'll lose against South Africa. I think we'll maybe come back and beat Ireland. We'll beat the other two in the middle.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
David, yourself.
I do think we'll lose to South Africa. I think we'll beat the other two. And I'm not going to lie, I think we will suffer a heartbreaking loss against Ireland and go home as the gallant losers like we always do. And we'll be looking for some kind of hurricane or whatever to blame this time. And then, let's blame the Hurricanes again.
Yeah. Mark Dodson will sue the Eurostar for being late or something,
What about sunstroke on the October bank holiday weekend? Does that work as well? I nearly forgot about that. I don't know how I ever forgot about that typhoon Haggis or whatever it was called.
It was a typhoon. I knew it wasn't a hurricane.
No. Just one observation I'm making here is this is the difference between a man who's been scared by Ireland in the last while and one who hasn't, because again, Munster went to Scotsdown where they hadn't lost for a year and a half and knocked them out in the EuroC quarterfinal. So I'll just blame it on that, David. I'll just say that's where yeah. I'll come back to you, so David. Who do you think will win the World Cup then? It's not Ireland. I get this impression. It's not going to be Ireland. You're going to say.
I think France will do it. I think the home advantage is massive. You look at the World Cups that we've had. Home advantage has been huge for most teams apart from England in 2015, which Well,
I like the way you're giggling there. I mean, you can't even get that sentence out.
I still remember it. But you look at home advantage over the years, and it's been huge for teams. And granted, it does ramp up the pressure on them massively. But I think this is, if the French are going to win a World Cup, this is their best chance for a long, long time, because this squad, not just the 15, but this squad has got, world class written all over it. So, and you kind of want to see them win. You want to see them do something with this generation that they've got. So, I do think the French.
That's fair. And as I kind of rudely interrupted there, Craig, you're not going to say Ireland are going to win. You think we're going to be knocked out of the pool stage by the sounds of things. So who do you see winning? Is it France?
My heart says France. I would love to see them win it, because just as David says, home advantage is wonderful, and they have come on a fantastic journey. Watching the All Blacks, I really think New Zealand are looking incredibly strong. So I think it will be a France All Blacks final. However, and I will say this, and it's not just to sook up to you, it's Ireland. If Ireland come out and play like that first game they played in the Six Nations, I forget the team they played against. Was it Wales? Wales.
Yeah.
If Ireland come out and play as slickly, as connected as they did, as just ferociously as they played that first game, they have the opportunity. The opportunity is theirs.
They won't have a better chance than this team.
Absolutely. They are looking incredibly strong. I think they'll go to a semi-final. Well, in my heart, I want Scotland to beat them, and I don't think they're going to get out the pool. But if they get out the pool, I think they'll go to a semi-final. And then if they do anything better than the semi-final, well, God bless them and let them go on, because they've done it. Andy Farrell. I think Andy Farrell's inherited a very, very good squad, but I think he's focused them a little bit more, and I think he's taken a little bit of the shackles off them, as in gameplay and very specific. You do this, then you do this, then you do this. I think he's let them open up a little bit and play what's in front of them a little bit, but still stick with the sort of the gameplay side of it. So I think he's done a phenomenal job, and I think they're incredibly strong. I think Andy Farrell's the England coach that they missed, if you know what I mean. I think England should have had him. So yeah, as I say, I think it'll be I honestly think my head says it's the All Blacks, my heart says it's France. But Ireland are that spectre sitting around the edges and just saying that if they have a good run, that there's a very good chance they'll get to a final.
I feel like a lot of podcasts, because I've a few lined up now in previews, are going to say France to win, and I feel like it is the safe bet. They are who I think is going to win as well, to be honest with you. But listen, it's probably the tightest one ever as well. That's the other side of it. And obviously we know with these quarterfinals, 2 of the top 5 teams in the world as it stands are going to be knocked out by the second week of October. That's what we're coming into. And listen, as it has been great chatting to you, even if you may have frightened a couple of listeners now, to be honest, or made them laugh, and nothing in between. It's going to be one or the other. But thanks very much. It has been a lot of fun. And for those at home, that's Pool B starting now with Scotland, and we have a bomb squad type South Africa preview coming on Thursday, before we dive into Pool C and Australia on Saturday. So thanks home for everyone for listening. If you do like what you see or hear, please do subscribe, and you can find the links for my channels, as well as the lads' Twitter pages and the Scottish Rugby podcast down below, which I highly recommend. But for now, and until next time, take it easy.